Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 3 of Matt and Scott and Jay Landers. I hope everyone is really realizing what a big deal it is that Jay is talking about this. I mean, he knows everything about everything Barbara's done since the 90s, and to have him on these episodes have been incredible. His stories are amazing, and these are the kind of stories that Matt gets out of people in his book, Barbra Streisand, The Music, the albums, the singles. So we hope that you've pre ordered it. It's printed and it's on a slow boat coming to America right now to my house, then to your house. So I hope that you've pre ordered at tuckerdspress.com. And a very, very special thank you to Jay Landers for spending all this time with us. That we had to split this into 3 parts, but I think it's been worth it. Today's episode is about this, the concert. This is the ad for the concert in the USA Today. I've kept it. This is from 1993, all these years. How can we tell that it's true? You know, on the back, November 8th, 1993, the big story, is it rap or is it ripoff? Because they were wondering about if rap really mattered. And maybe everything in the 90s didn't age as well as the Barbra concert. But I've kept that for all these years because I went to the concert and it was amazing. And you're going to hear some great stories from Jay on the concert. So thank you so much for watching these, and let's jump to it. Okay, so our next album is The Concert. This one is definitely only from Spain on vinyl, and it is super rare. I had to spend, we don't talk about what I spent to get this. And so this also really needs to come out. The concert is like so important to me. It is ridiculous. Let's start. Why did she do the concert? She hadn't performed for 28 years. You know, she did The Prince of Tides. She had a #1 album. Why face her fear? Why did she do that, Jay?
Well, let me go back and let me reel myself back in time. You know, Marty Ehrlichman, part of his brilliance as a manager, but particularly as a manager for Barbra, is he had a philosophy from the very get-go. And it was, today it seems like, well, of course, it's obvious. You know, she's an actress, she could direct, she can write, she can sing, she can, you know, all of those things seem obvious in hindsight. But he had a thought from the very, very beginning, which was, you should do everything you can do in concerts, recordings, television, movies. And the benefit of that is that, you know what? You put out a movie, it flops, but your record is #1. You put out a record, it doesn't do so good, but guess what? You just sold out Madison Square Garden. Ticket sales, you don't feel like doing concerts. Well, guess what? The movie just hit. So he always wanted her firing on all cylinders so that there was always something new and exciting that she was passionate about, but that kept interest in her from the public's perspective. So the first hump to get over was, how will I remember all of these lyrics? And the introductory dialogue and the between song dialogue, et cetera, et cetera. Once she had confidence that that was achievable, well, Marty Ehrlichman had been booking this tour or these shows for like 20 years in his mind. So finally he had this opportunity. This was the one where she reopened the MGM Grand, as I recall.
Yep.
It was a hell of a night because she was in the newly built arena at the MGM Grand. In the showroom, Frank Sinatra was performing on the same day. And then there was a kind of a secondary showroom that I recall Loggins and Messina were performing. So there was a lot of action that night. And anyway, she and the Bergmans got together. And once she had agreed to do it, She then, of course, says, well, I don't want to just go out and sing, my 15 most popular songs and call it a night. It has to be a show, almost like a Broadway show with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that was definitely her, instinct. And so she got together with the Bergmans, and I was there, and we all, suggested songs, and she and the Bergmans would come up with storylines. They came up with this whole thing about talking to the psychiatrist.
Yeah, with all the transference and countertransference. Sometimes I don't know whether I'm the patient or the doctor. Hello.
Who are you?
I'm Dr. Lowenstein.
What kind of a show do I have to put on for you?
What's bothering you?
What was it like 30 minutes before December 31st, at 8:30? Where were you? And, I was there on January 1st. So I was there the second night, but not the first night, because I figured she'd probably be a little better the second night. So we got our tickets for January 1st.
Well, there's kind of a two intertwining things were going on. The hotel itself had aimed towards this New Year's Eve opening, but they really weren't ready to open. So, you'd go into the bathroom and you'd go, how do you turn on the shower?
Oh God.
It was like, where are the knobs to turn? It wasn't a disaster, but it was not really ready. And part of their unreadiness was it was not terribly well organized, where patrons who were coming into the casino and to see the shows, et cetera, nobody really knew where to go. How do you get to the arena? So it was like a disorganized beehive of pandemonium. And then for Barbra's comfort, and I don't know if this was a common thing then or not, but there was security. So you couldn't just, like airport metal detector kind of things. So getting into the arena was very slow. And then, so it was a lot of now Barbra was kind of oblivious to all of this, but if you're asking me what my experience was, it was like, oh my God, there's a lot of stuff going on here.
Wow.
But from her vantage point, Frank Sinatra had butterflies to the day he stopped touring. It's not like you get over them because you do it a lot. But all things considered, she was remarkably composed, knowing her reticence about performing live. She was remarkably composed. We had rehearsed the show many, many, many times. So we knew the mechanics of it. And there was a lot of mechanics, things coming up from the stage and getting these colossal, almost Greek columns, and all of that stuff. So it was a lot of stuff going on. But she was remarkably composed, and one of the things that Richard J. and I kind of chuckle about from time to time is, Barbra can be singing, fully committed, singing to a song, and she's going, and the way we were. How come that column move that column 2 inches to the left? Memories, I don't know, to the right, like the corners on it. So she is like she's one of these people that can compartmentalize and multitask, so that she's both the observer and the person who's being observed.
It is the greatest night of my life. That January 1st, I never thought I would see Barbra. This is when I was the biggest Barbra fan. I love to tell the story. I only had $2,000 to my whole name. I was, and I spent half of it to go to Las Vegas and see Barbra, and everybody thought I was crazy. And I was like, no, this is going to be the greatest thing I ever do in my entire life. And it still is.
Yeah.
It meant the world to me to get to see her. And the show was so good. Like, it was bigger and better than I ever dreamed it would be.
Yeah, it was for me too. It was quite an experience.
For those of us who couldn't be there, that's why this album is so fantastic. And then the video too. Sorry, I lost my AirPods, ran out of battery. You warned me. I swear to God, I charged them, but you can hear me okay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, we can hear you
Okay.
great.
Right.
Matt, do you want to make your pick from this one?
Sure. I mean, this concert, I mean, maybe Judy Garland at Carnegie Hall rivals it, but this is the most amazing concert ever, ever, ever. And of course, as a Streisand fan, it's just my favorite, I think. But so it's hard to choose, is what I'm trying to say. But the one that I keep going back to over and over again is the medley. I do love a medley. I'm Still Here, Everybody Says Don't, and Don't Rain on My Parade. It's just so electrifying, and so the energy is just so amazing. And Marvin Hamlish's reinterpretation of Don't Rain on My Parade, the arrangement with sort of like this classical Bartok, whatever kind of arrangement that is, it's just the most refreshing that song has sounded in a while, and it's hard to ignore that amazing, amazing arrangement. And of course, Barbra is in perfect voice, the entire album, but especially that medley. So that's my pick.
Jay, why did she shorten I'm Still Here? She did a longer version on December 31st and January 1st, but in the tour, it's a shortened version of I'm Still Here.
Well, there are like 5 answers to that question. But if you're a student of Barbra and you've seen all of her concerts since that concert, Timeless and 2006 and all those other shows, one of the great fun, I would say fun, not terrible, fun challenges that Richard J. Alexander and I have faced is that Barbra is loath to do the same thing twice. Further, one of the reasons why her illustrious Broadway career was truncated, so to speak, because she didn't go beyond Funny Girl with other roles, is that she really doesn't like feeling like a trained seal who's doing the same trick over and over and over again. So she always finds new ways to do things. One of her, because she gets bored. And, it's not the audience's fault. The audience wants to hear the tried and true, but she gets bored. I think I think almost every artist feels this kind of thing. Well, this obligation, Bruce Springsteen can't go to a concert and not play Born to Run, but he'd rather do a song from his new album.
Right.
So Barbra is similar in that way. So one of the challenges, the fun challenges that Richard J. Alexander and I have is that when, in these rare occasions when she agrees to go on tour, we know she cannot not do Don't Rain on My Parade. She cannot not do People. She cannot not do, a dozen of her signature songs. But what we do have to find is a new way to do them. So, and one of her initial instincts with everything is, well, cut it in half. Why do I have to sing the whole Don't Rain on My Parade? Why don't we just, cut to the chase? And then we pull back and say, well, you gotta do at least the first verse, So anyway, between Barbra, the arrangers, and input from Richard and I, we find ways to include these songs as parts of medleys. And fortunately, you like the medleys. So as to why I'm Still Here was shortened, it was a result of that. And of course, she's on stage, and more than any of us, acutely feels when, okay, that we've had enough of that moment. Let's move to this moment.
Yeah.
It's like when you're reading a speech to somebody and you go, oh boy, I'm getting wordy here. I wish I'd cut this. So that's the reason why these songs come in different shapes and sizes. But it was just a thrilling, it was many years ago, and I can still remember it like it was yesterday. It was just a thrilling, and all the celebrities that came, and it was a lot of fun.
What is your pick from the concert? Do you have a
I
pick?
have one instant moment where I would sit for every show, every rehearsal was at the soundboard.
Oh,
'cause
in the
I
back of the house?
It was kind of in the back, but not fully the back. It was
Okay.
on the ground, on the floor, about 3/4 of the way back. And they always saved a seat for me there because partially I'm enjoying the show, but also I'm listening and thinking, oh, on Wednesday, she really did a great version of that. On Thursday, she did a great version of that. Or on Wednesday, she really hit that note. And on, Friday, it was different or whatever. So I'm kind of making notes to myself about highlight moments that I want to be able to capture on tape. I'm not saying specifically for this album, but in general, that's how the live albums are made. But the moment that I waited for and just completely lost myself, and I was not thinking about the mechanics of what was going on, I was really listening, was Lazy Afternoon.
Oh,
And it's probably the most obscure song on the record, in the show. It was included at my encouragement. It wasn't a greatest hit by a long shot. But I just love that song. And in my view, that's in her top 10 all-time greatest records. And so that's my choice.
Yeah, I couldn't believe when she sang Lazy Afternoon. That was certainly the biggest surprise for the whole evening.
It was a deep dive into the catalog.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, I have to tell the quick story. I saw this concert in Landover, Maryland, because I was living in Washington, DC at the time. And, there was really not a lot of internet back then. So I couldn't see what the set lists were for London and MGM. So, and of course she changed the set list by the time she got to DC. And
hold on one second.
Yeah.
Richard J.
Oh.
I'm on with Scott and Matt as we speak.
He had to crash this episode.
Okay. I'll call you back. Bye.
That is so funny.
Has to be in every episode.
It's a Richard J. Alexander cameo.
The Baron of Broadway, the Prince of Palm Springs.
Anyway, the story is simple, just that I didn't know what was coming. I was completely surprised. And when I heard the opening chords of Lazy Afternoon, I said, she is not singing Lazy Afternoon. And she did, and it was amazing. So
yeah, it was.
Love it.
I just had a feeling that the real fans, not the casual fans, the real fans would get a kick out of that.
Yeah.
So for me to pick a song from this album is ridiculous because I love everything so much. And I have two written down, and I'm just picking them both, and I don't care. It's the first time I'm cheating and picking two, and it's because how can you not pick the Yentl medley? It's the greatest thing ever. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
absolutely. I could have picked that too.
I mean, it's just insane. Who thought of that? Because she didn't do it at my show. She didn't do it on New Year's Eve. And
she started doing it in London.
First,
I got to see the Yentl medley too. And again,
you got DC, the Yentl medley, Matt?
I sure did. I remember thinking, she couldn't possibly sing Piece of Sky, could she?
You got it. So she didn't do it at MGM.
We need Matt's book to verify this because I'm a little unclear. She did a Yentl medley in Timeless where the screens split apart.
Yeah,
but not at MGM in '94.
Okay.
She didn't add the Yentl medley until London. Yeah. which is after.
That's why I'm getting Matt Howe's book available in hardcover, coffee
So
table.
I mean, I think
paperback.
we're just throwing out there that the Yentl medley is the
It
best
was
thing. But my
extraordinary.
pick, because is He Touched Me. And
Oh,
over the years, like it wasn't my favorite that night, probably when the album came out, but over the years, watching her say nothing, nothing, nothing will be the same, and she shakes her hands and it gets a standing ovation, which, you know, it's so good. Like there's so many big numbers or classic. I don't know. I guess that is kind of a classic one, but I don't know if you watch it in her eyes. Everything about He Touched Me, it's not one of my favorite songs. It really isn't. But that performance is just so moving. I think I cry every time I watch it. And so I'm picking He Touched Me with the understanding that, come on, the Yentl medley is maybe the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
It's
I hope you can
uncheating.
hear me, because the leaf blower guy outside, he seems to have a way of knowing exactly when I'm going to be on a phone call. He just
And I actually see the leaf blower guy, and it's Richard J. Alexander.
That's right. Now, Matt, you'll have to, another reason for picking up your book, see how I always,
yes.
my
I got that
A&R nature-
segue. Thank you for the
my
segue.
A&R nature is to always bring it back into focus, right? So, was the song He Touched Me released as a single by another artist before Barbra?
Oh, God, that's a good question. I'm not sure I know the answer to.
There was there was a song early in her career. It was a lesson that Marty Ehrlichman kind of learned the hard way, but never forgot. It may have been Coloring Book. Or it may
Yeah,
have been He Touched
all the
Me.
other artists that recorded that.
Yeah, it was one of those two songs where he was under the impression, because the label had told him so, that Barbra had the exclusive on that track. And then to his surprise, he sees another version of it on the charts, and suddenly he's got unexpected competition.
Yeah.
And it was like, he never forgot that.
I think Barbra did it first. And looking at Wikipedia, it looks to me like Barbra originated outside of the Drat the
I think
Cat.
my Coloring Book may have been done by one other person. I want to say like Edie Gourmet or somebody else got to
Yeah.
it.
I know George Shakiris from
Yeah.
from West Side Story actually recorded that too. But it was Sandy Patty, not Sandy Patty. It was
Posey?
Sandy something, or anyway, there were other people that recorded it, and
There's
Marty
another
was
good
upset
site
about that.
there's another good site for your research. It's called Secondhand Songs. Do you know that?
Oh, yeah.
It'll
I
tell
like
you,
that. That
it'll tell
website
you
is
in
good.
order who recorded a particular song.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress.
No, all your digressions were amazing. You were a great guest. Thank you so much for that. We got through our albums that we're picking for this episode.
Good.
We did it. This is again, when I was the biggest Barbra fan of my life, was this section right here. I think she's always been in her prime, but here, like everything she was doing was just incredible.
How far are you going to go into the catalog?
The whole way.
With these
The whole way.
seminars? Oh,
We're going the
great.
whole way, man.
Great. Well,
it should come out right about
listen,
when the album comes out, or
as-
record book.
As Barbra's fans who read the back of record covers know, I'm not one to give interviews. She is the star of the show, and everything that I do is just to help her, as I said, realize her vision. So it's a joy speaking with two guys who actually appreciate what she's doing and what I'm kind of helping her do on the side. And it's really a joy. So I broke my own rule.
Well, thank you. Thank you
up.
for breaking the rule, your own
Thank
rule. And also thank you for your help on the book. You know, the foreword was amazing, but then you know, in October, a month or two before we went to print, you answered a slew of questions that I sent over, and they really helped elevate the book. And I think the readers are going to appreciate some of the insights that you've given since you've recorded with her for so long.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you went on the record and on the record, just for the record, and helped me out. Very nice, very sweet. I appreciate it.
Well, that's very, very kind of you to say. And for the Barbra fans who are listening, there's a few more surprises that we have up our sleeves, musical surprises that we have up our sleeves for 2023 and further. I'll just leave you with that little, because you might need to write a, what do you call it? A
revised version of the book.
Yes, exactly. An updated version of the book.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
So there you have it, the end of our 3 parts with Jay Landers, and a special shout out to Richard J. Alexander. Wasn't that so fun that he called and then we got to make a little fun of him? Thank you, Richard, for being a good sport and for all your support, of course. And Jay Landers, I mean, the stories you have, I'm begging him to write a book. I've been begging him every time I talk to him, begging him to write a book. He just knows so much about everything. We have a little coda at the end of this one. When we started the interview, Matt asked Jay a question about the TV show Fame, and Jay told a great story. We didn't want to start off the 3-part Barbra thing with Fame, so I thought I'd slip it in here at the end. So stay tuned if you're a Fame fan, because Jay's going to tell you a little story about that. And Matt and I will be back next week, finishing up the 90s records, and we will be going on for 4 more episodes to get through all of Barbra's categories and catalogs and everything. Thank you so much for this, for watching all of these, and for your kind comments online, and for everyone who's pre-ordered this book. It's meant the world to Matt and I. We've worked on this book so hard. You can't imagine the work Matt has put into this. And when we're on here, we're just talking off the cuff and you know, going from album to album. We're doing our best. The book is so well researched, and it's beautiful. So go to Tucker DS Press and pick up a copy. And here's one more little story from Jay.
I have a question, Jay, before we move on to Barbra. Were you involved with these kids from Fame?
You know, yes, I was. Yes, I was.
Oh.
And it's very interesting that you should pull those albums out of your collection, because my daughter, who's 17 years old, goes to in her school. She's one of the dance on the dance. She does something. How do I explain this? She
like modern dance.
It's a dance class, but they put on big shows.
Yeah,
she's very, very involved in it. So I introduced myself to her teacher. And the teacher said, she goes, "You don't have to introduce yourself to me. I know who you are." And I said, "How would Mrs. Locke, how would you ever know who I am?" And she says, "Fame, I want to live forever."
Oh,
and it was her favorite show growing up.
Oh,
so yes, I was, it all ties back to Barbra. I was working for Charles Koppelman.
Yeah.
And who passed away just a couple of days ago.
He did just pass away, yeah.
Yeah. And I was his sort of West Coast eyes and ears to find projects, to find songs, because in addition to working with Barbra, he worked with a whole host of other artists that always needed songs. So part of my job was to find these various artists, Dolly Parton and other artists that he was working with, find him songs. So I'm at a meeting. This may be a little off topic, but I was at a meeting with a guy who was a famous record executive in Los Angeles. And he steps out of the meeting for a minute, and I see that he's got the script for Fame on his desk. So when he comes back in, I said, "What's that about?" And he said, he tosses me the script. He says, "Oh, we're not going to do this. It's just they're going to make a TV show out of Fame. It's not going to work, et cetera, et cetera." And I said, well, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, what a great opportunity to place songs in a show that needs 3 or 4 songs every episode.
Yeah.
So I bring the script to Charles. He says, that's a great idea. We make a deal with, I think it was MGM at the time, to be the music supervisors. And they had an in-house music supervisor named Maureen Crowe, who's been very successful as a film music supervisor. She worked on The Bodyguard, to name one small project. But I was the outside guy. So Maureen would call me and she would say, okay, in this episode, the kids run into the street and they start throwing food at each other or something. So I would then have the premise of the song that I needed, and I'd say, and I'd call every songwriter I knew, and I need a song called Food Fight, right?
Right.
And then she would select the best one of that bunch. So it got to be always, every phone call started with, the kids run into the classroom and start beating on chalkboards and things. I'd say, okay, we need one called Chalkboard. So I'd go.
Right.
And in this way, we found a lot of the songs for the show. And as time went on, the show was always sort of never a smash hit in America, but by reasons which I've never been clear about, it became a cultural phenomenon in England. So Charles and his partner, Marty Bandier, said, why don't we, in the off season, why don't we, what are the hiatus, why don't we put on a show called The Kids from Fame, and we'll tour it around England. And by the way, Jay, you're the road manager. So I had no idea what that meant, but I just dove in, and it was everything from get the kids their visas, to booking the hotel, to making sure they all showed up, to finding the songs, to working very closely with Debbie Allen to create a show. And it was the closest I'll ever come to Beatlemania. When the kids got off the plane and went to the limousines, they were rocking the limousine. The fans were like,
wow.
So it was a lot of fun. And Debbie Allen, I think she fired me 5 times on that tour.
I've been watching it on YouTube this week. I think it's live in Wembley or something like that. And it's kind of the Debbie Allen show too. I mean, she is just extraordinary.
She was, at that time, the way these kids responded to her, and when she said jump, they said how high. I mean, it was really, she was remarkable.
Well, Jay, I just found out this week that you were involved in this, and this is such a huge part of my childhood and when I was in high school, and my drama teacher had us sing songs from this and the productions. I mean, I'm just so, forget Barbra Streisand. I'm so impressed that you did Kids from Fame. I'm so happy to learn that.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And the funny thing is, the guy from the agency, which was CAA, Creative Artists Agency, the guy who they assigned to accompany us to make sure the box office was clean every night and all of that kind of stuff, was a guy named Rob Light, who is now the chairman of CAA concerts, touring, etc. Very, very impressive guy. And about, I don't know, that was, what year was that? Like 84 or something like that?
It was like 82 to like 84. It was on for like 3 seasons, I think, or 4.
So more than 20 years go by and a show called Glee comes on.
Yeah.
It's, it's certainly drawn from the same well as Glee, right? And
absolutely,
sure enough, in their hiatus, the kids from Glee went on concert.
Right.
So I'm backstage at the Universal Amphitheater, as I recall, and Rob Light is the agent for the show. So both of us are standing, and it's pandemonium, and it's very exciting with Leah Michele and all the kids from the show. And Rob looks at me and he goes, "Haven't we seen this movie before?"
It's so true.
Right?
They're cut from the same cloth.
Very much so. So anyway, that was a blast, and I was thinking about it because of Charles' passing.
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
other day. We had a lot of
Well,
fun.
thank you for indulging us. I had to
You're welcome.
ask. I told Scott I was going to do it before we got on. I was like, I got to
Okay.
ask about fame.
Life is a
Well,
celebration.
yes, I mean, at least
Yes,
now
yes.
we are certain of what Matt's follow-up book might be. It might be the Book of Fame.
Okay.
But before we get to the follow-up book,
Yes.
we've got the book that we've got now, which is Barbra Streisand, the music, the